Okay, we are recording. We are live. Phone lines are open. Please begin.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the East Hampton Town Trustees regular meeting of October 25th, and I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Allison, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
Would you mind doing roll call, please?
Certainly. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
John Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach,
Here.
Ben Dollinger, Rick Drew,
Here.
Tim Garneau,
Here.
Jim Grimes,
Here.
Mike Martinson, Susan McGraw-Keeber,
Here.
and Bill Taylor.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Okay, so under public comment, we're going to open with hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, Martha. We're going to close, wants to close out trustee permit number 3-21 for construction of sand fencing on beach in front of 38 2 Mile Hollow Road. Suffolk County Tax Map 301-10-1-32. Jim?
All right. I inspected this property with Martha today, and I believe, Susan, you stopped by a little bit later.
Yes.
The sand fencing is in the areas described. It's basically what we talked about. I'd like to make a motion to just close this out.
I will second that motion.
Hey, Jim, can I ask you a question before we vote on this? So the fencing's in place, or the fencing has been removed at this point?
No, the fencing's in place. Why would it be removed?
Well, I'm just saying, why are we closing out the permit? We're just saying it's in place and there's no need for the
It's
permit?
done.
Job was done.
In fact, actually, Rick, as per our new rules and regulations related to this does not require a vote from the board. This could be handled basically administratively in-house. But
Right. So the fencing, basically, as with other fencing, is just staying in place. It's accreting sand. It's helping
been
to
installed.
build up the dune.
yeah, at this point, it's
Doing
been
everything.
installed. There's no real accretion of the dune as to date.
I went by today and I did take pictures of it, and it's exactly as it was, the application was submitted. And it's a very simple job. It will help the beach retain itself, and helps to keep the property from being run into by the public because it's right on the corner. But it's exactly as was described and applied for by Martha's applicants.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Okay,
thank you,
so
Martha.
Oh,
we
you
have a
have to vote.
motion in a second. We're not going
I
to vote,
second.
right?
Sorry.
Jim?
We can vote on it, Francis. I don't think it matters really one way or the other here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night, Martha.
Hey, Martha.
Hi. Good night.
Good to see you.
Okay, Matt, do we have anyone in the waiting room?
There's nobody in the waiting room.
I believe we have Jim Walker on the line.
Are you here, Jim?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, so we'll go to Jim next. Request from Jim Walker on behalf of owners of 25 Cove Hollow Road Farm Road. Suffolk County Tax Map 301-12-10-5 to close out trustee permit number GP1-21. Jim Grimes?
Okay, Jim Walker and I met down at the site this morning, walked it. The walkway that was permitted is in. The shoreline plantings along the shoreline have been installed. The wetland buffer has been installed. I would like to make a few comments about this installation. I did take some pictures, but unfortunately I can't share them with you guys tonight. I can shoot them over to you tomorrow. You know, in trying to rate the quality of some of these wetland buffer projects, I think we've got to look very seriously at preparation. I mean, has this job been done as per the plans that were prepared by InterScience's office? I believe they have, but you know, it was completely absent on this job was any form of real site preparation before the plantings occurred. So what presently is there is, yes, the plants are there, but you know, they're there with with a nice robust population of the invasives, which was part of the goals that were involved here. Now where those invasives occur, guys, is beyond like our jurisdictional authority. But I think it's important to when we look at these projects is to recognize the good from the bad. And unfortunately, if we were going to vote on, if we were going to grade a project, I think you'd have to grade this one at somewhere around a C- to a D. It's there, but I don't have any real confidence that long term it's going to be a successful planting. And I think Mr. Walker concurred on that. And I think that totally goes back to just bad implementation on the part of the contractor.
Jim, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I was going to ask you, what would you recommend? But
well, I mean,
maybe you're saying that what you're unhappy with is not necessarily in our jurisdiction. Is that?
It's not in our jurisdiction. I'm not sure how moving forward you can kind of grade out something. It's unfortunately, Jim and I did have a meeting with this property owner some time ago before the work was done, and it was specifically mentioned to the owner the importance of, like, this isn't one of these wetland buffer projects, especially when you've got a site that is dominated by non-native invasives. It's not a job that you go to and on Monday you deal with your invasives and on Tuesday you plant the job. It's really a job that you have to go to and spend real time. The easiest part of the job is the planting. It's the time that's spent in preparation of that planting that's the most important. And it's a little disheartening when you see these job after job like this that is almost doomed to failure from day one, just because whether the applicant didn't want to basically reach and spend the money, or whether you had a contractor that just plain and simply didn't understand the job and put the effort into it. That's my only comment on this. I don't think I'm going to make a motion to close this permit out because it is there. It lives up to the conditions of the job as described, but I do feel that it does fall way short of what I would describe as a good installation.
Hey, Jim, before you make the motion, is going forward when we are evaluating these earlier in the process, is there anything we can do? We came to the conclusion years ago about, the benefit of the pond being the bottom line, so to speak, of any of these projects.
And Rick, here's the thing. That wetland buffer will probably serve the health of the pond, whether it's comprised of natives or whether it's comprised of Phragmites, Moro honeysuckle, porcelain vine, Rosa multiflora, and Mila minute, and some of the other stuff that we observed on this site. But what happens is how that buffer interacts with the wildlife, it falls short. It falls short because it doesn't provide the same level of quality to the environment that it could provide. And Rick, I don't really know how. I don't know how we impose that on somebody. Perhaps
operation.
Well, perhaps it will. And unfortunately, in this one here, there was zero interaction between the contractor and InterScience's office.
Right.
None. And but yet, is the job there? Yes, it's there. Are the plants there? Yes, they are. Are they organized in a manner that you would find them in nature? No, they're not. They're just a random splash of native plants that, for the most part, where you find, you had plants that you would typically find on a moister portion of the site right next to the plant that you'd find at the dry portion. Over time, in a natural setting, those things would sort themselves out. What does happen in a situation like this is long before that sort of natural shuffling can occur, the non-native invasives are actually going to fill those voids much more quickly.
Okay, well, maybe it's a good lesson learned for a future project.
It's a good lesson learned for all of us, but I'm not quite sure how we move forward. It's getting better. The quality of these jobs are getting better. That's the long and short of it. How do we get them or help the village or the town get them to where they could be? Because it's one of those things. I got to believe that the property owner has got to feel that they didn't really get what they're looking for. And it's too bad, because the native world can look really good. It can look like a good looking landscape. It doesn't need to be a weed patch. And my concern on any of these is, as they sort of fail the test on the native side, the property owner is ultimately disheartened and feels compelled to put it back into lawn or whatever.
Abandoned.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Before the board decides what to do, I would suggest that some of the comments from the trustees have been forwarded to the client, and the client's going to react to those. And I would suggest that perhaps the trustees could close out the old permit for the little walkway and move the Phragmites project into your annual maintenance process, so that the applicant would have a chance to remove the Mila minute weed, porcelain berry, there's privet, multiflora rose. There's a bunch of weeds, and even though the project hasn't been completely successful, there's always ways to pull out non-natives, invasive species, and make a better situation out of something that may have not been ideal. And I think that's what I would recommend to the town at this point.
Well, Jim, I think that's a point well made. But from if I could make a comment on that, if we go that route, what I would say is, on a renewal, that we get a management plan for the property that specifically fleshes out, just like you just said, Jim, what's intended to be controlled, how it's going to be controlled, and a schedule of the operations throughout the growing season.
I think that's okay by me. That sounds very positive, and hopefully it would help the property owner out. Hopefully it would help out the contractor. But in any case, I think that's better than simply closing out the permit and calling it a day. The guy needs to have the Phragmites management program open anyway, because there's going to be Phragmites that returns there, and he's going to need to have the contractor do the work. Other words, all that time and money has been wasted, period. So I would urge the board to try to move it to the maintenance program.
Okay, would somebody like to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I mean, as a member of the Ponds Committee, I'd make a motion to close out the current permit and move the future activities there into the maintenance program and allow the trustees to continue to oversee this and manage it in perhaps a little better way.
Thanks. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay.
Hey, thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, I think that's very helpful. Thanks a lot, and have a good rest of the night.
You too.
Take it easy. Bye.
Okay. Matt, anyone else in the waiting room?
Nobody else, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to old business now. Excuse me. We have a request from Rick Whalen of Landmarks on behalf of the owners of 275 3 Mile Harbor Hog Creek Road, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-75-1-32.2 to vote on the application for construction of a floating dock. Now, I think that would be John, wouldn't it?
Like me to say a few words, Francis, or are you going to just go to your vote?
No. John's on that committee. I'm just trying to.
Well, I guess all I can really say is, I mean, Rick and Maddie, asked to be on the agenda for this. We spoke about this several months ago, and it was going to be, reviewed to a degree by the Harbor Management Committee, look at some other aspects of what was going on in the harbor. There's been some work done on that, not a lot of work, however. So I don't think, I think, personally, it's time for a decision on this.
Rick?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments I could
Oh,
share.
I meant Rick Whalen. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to wait for Rick to speak if he'd like to go first.
Well, thank you, Francis, members of the trustees. So the application was made to the trustees for this dock by John McGinn and Kerry Davis, who are the property owners here, about two years ago. So it's been pending in front of the trustees for the last 2 years. We have been on your agenda, I think, actually appeared in front of you 6 times. There have been, I think we pulled it off the agenda once. I think once the trustees, when you're talking about referring to the Harbor Management Committee, pulled it off the agenda. So, it's been a while. We do have, there have been 4 different occasions in which we've submitted additional materials to the trustees at your request. We do have permits now from the New York State DEC. I've actually had them since 2020 from both the DEC and the Army Corps. The Department of State and the Zoning Board obviously have to wait until you've acted. But it's been before the board for a long time, and we've done everything we can to try to make it a good application. You've received a handwritten letter, I think, from John and Carrie. So I think we do feel that you should make a decision now. I do want to say one more thing, though, about how this all began. When John McGinn first contacted us and said, we're thinking we'd like to have a dock in front of our property. What do you think? I knew, and I did look into it further to confirm what I thought I knew, and it was true, that back in 1984, starting in 1984, the trustees had banned docks in most of your harbors, most of the water bodies in which one could actually put in a dock. And in 84, you banned new floating or fixed docks. And Accabotic, Mappig Harbor, Northwest Creek, even enclosed water bodies like Georgia Pond and Hook Pond. And then later, I think later in 84, you banned them in Hog Creek. And then finally in 1987, the trustees in 84 didn't touch Thruma Harbor, but in 87 came back to Thruma Harbor and decided we're going to not allow any new docks in, basically the western and southern ports of Thruma Harbor, leaving the eastern side of Thruma Harbor as the only water body under your control in which dock applications could be made. So we certainly understand that that doesn't mean that a dock application on the east side of Thruma Harbor has to be granted. You still have discretion, but there are some objective standards out there, including those that are in the town code, those that the DEC applies. We can't have a dock under the town regulations, not yours, but under the town regulations. We can't have a floating dock that extends more than 80 feet offshore. In fact, that is as far as we go. And in that distance, we have to reach at least 3 feet of depth of water at low tide, and we do. Most other places, even on the east side of the harbor, do not meet those qualifications and would never be out, and they would never be eligible for a dock under the town zoning regulations, regardless of what you might do. So, I advised the client that they had an opportunity here to make an application. Of course, I didn't tell them they were guaranteed to get an approval, but I did say, you have an opportunity because the trustees, on a policy going back almost 3 decades, a considered policy, do in theory allow docks on the east side of Thruma Harbor. So, that's why our application was made. We've already reiterated a number of times what the mitigation for this application is. I do want to point out that Mr. McGinn and Mr. Davis have about 400 feet of frontage on the east side of Thruma Harbor, and pursuant to the covenant that they've offered, only one dock can be built in that 400 feet of shore frontage. So that's a significant limitation on what can happen in the immediate area. We're about 4 lots south of East Hampton Point, which is a major marina, and of course inside Duck Creek is another major marina, which is the Maidstone Harbor Marina. So, we put our best foot forward. I think we've made a good application. We are clear of the navigation channel. We are offering mitigation in terms of any disturbance that might occur, to shellfish resources. And, we've done the best we can and, use the opening that the trustees, through your policies have provided. So, I guess at this point we would like to see a decision, have a vote be made.
Hey, Rick, it's Rick Drew. How you doing?
Hey, Rick.
Just to reiterate some of the, what I would call, remediation, mitigation proposed, I believe mentioned that you were going to sterilize the adjacent property. So there would be one dock on the applicant property and the adjacent property would be completely sterilized. Is that to bulkheading and docks?
I don't think bulkheading was offered.
Just to dock.
Yeah, only to docks.
Okay. And then
I will say, let me just say one thing about the neighboring property to the north. It is lower. The house on that property is set back a lot further than on this property, and the town doesn't like bulkheads anyway. So I would say the chances of somebody making a bulkhead application on that northerly property in the foreseeable future is nil. But no, that wasn't part of our proposal.
Okay. And then I believe that Barley recommended participating in the Oyster dock program where there would be oysters swimming and floating from the dock structure.
Right. We would put cages under the I presume under the catwalk. I don't know if you can do them under the float.
And then in addition to that, I had recommended a while back participating in an annual free seeding for, I believe, 5 years to make more shellfish available to the public.
Yes.
Are those 3 things still clear and something the applicants?
Yes, they are on offer. They are offered as part of the application.
Okay, and just for my own benefit, how many pilings are going to be sunk into the bottom with the catwalk?
13. Only 13 pilings.
Okay, and they're what, 8-inch diameter?
Those are 8-inch pilings. Yes.
Okay, and they are going to be permanently in the bottom?
That I'm not clear about. I don't know, Maddie, for the floating dock, will the pilings remain there? I mean, yes. I guess this also might be a trustee call because, obviously there is disturbance associated with, installation and removal. Has there been discussion of that, Maddie?
Well, we actually haven't discussed whether the pilings would be coming in and out when the floating dock portion is removed in the winter. I think it's going to come down to what would cause the least amount of disturbance, which obviously is something that we would agree to.
How many pilings are associated with the floating dock?
Well, it's 13 total, and I'm looking at the diagram of the dock right now.
Yeah, let me look at that too.
It's hard to tell.
I thought it was 9, but I may be mistaken.
Yeah, Drew's plan. I don't see the pilings of Drew's plan, at least in the overhead view, the plan view.
Because I think everyone is, somewhat concerned about minimizing the impact on the bottom, obviously. So, if we can do this in a way that is as, least intrusive as possible, so it'd be nice to have clarification at this point as to how many pilings are associated with the catwalk and how many are with the floating dock.
It must be in some of the plans before you, because that's how we know the number. But I'm not seeing it on the site plan. There must be a.
I think I'm looking at the plan now. I believe there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 pilings associated with the catwalk and 3 pilings associated with the floating dock.
And those are, and John, I believe those were on one side of the
floating dock has single pilings.
Straps.
Catwalk has double pilings.
Yeah. All right.
But I'm just giving a total number of pilings. 3 for the floating dock on one
10,
side only.
And then 10 for the
2, 3,
permanent
4,
structure.
5 pairs of pilings for the catwalk.
All right.
Yeah. Guys, I don't understand exactly why we're talking about the amount of pilings when, there's been a moratorium since the mid 80s on this. I feel like this is going to lead to a proliferation of docks, and it's one of the most beautiful harbors in the country.
I'm gonna
listen, Jim, I'm talking.
Okay.
There are navigational issues with the 80-foot dock. I'm against this. It's going, and giving up the rights to the dock next door doesn't really hold water if we're saying that there's no new docks. So there's plenty of marinas out there. I've used a mooring in Northwest Harbor for 12 years, exactly the time when my children were 3, 5, and 7. You just make do. I don't really care about how many pilings there are. I think that there should be a moratorium on docks in that harbor.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, Tim, if there's going to be a moratorium, which presently there is no moratorium on docks, okay, the trustees back in 87 made the rules, okay, that we're abiding by for this application, okay? And that rule was that there would be no new docks with the exception of this area. Now, the fact that there are no new docks since 1987, that's not a moratorium. That was prior boards just didn't want to see any more docks. And guys, when you say that it's immaterial that that this applicant has offered to not put a dock or apply for a dock on the property next door, that is material, Tim. I disagree with you on that. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, this board could, after the vote on this application, decide that there are no new docks in 3 Mile Harbor. Okay. And you know what? Future boards would have the ability to undo that and change that. But where this applicant has offered as mitigation to put a covenant in on that property next door, it would not matter what future boards do. If a future board found themselves where they fell in love with docks and they wanted to see them everywhere, you know what? That property to the north would still not be able to have a dock. So that's where I think the attitude that this is going to cause a proliferation of docks. I don't think it will, for the simple fact that any application for a dock has immediately got to pass the acid test, of which Rick Whalen mentioned earlier, of carrying 3 foot of water at low tide underneath the dock. The bottom profile of most of these properties doesn't allow that. Okay, so that basically cuts out a lot of properties already. And last but not least in any of these things is we, as the owners of the bottom, can basically somewhat capriciously decide not to allow a dock because we don't think it's fit to have something in there. So I feel that this applicant has certainly done due diligence here. The offers of mitigation, I think are adequate. In fact, I think perhaps they're more than adequate for me in good conscience to support this application. In terms of the impact to navigation, there is no impact to navigation. This thing doesn't protrude any farther out than any of the other docks in the area. And the navigation, there are no navigational issues with that.
And there's a couple of points that I would like to make too, that, the dock is out of the channel, and I've never seen anyone get in trouble over there because the channel is quite a bit away. That northern property is eligible probably for a dock just like this one is. So by sterilizing that property, you are accomplishing protecting the harbor on a permanent basis. So I do think there is some value there. And I like the fact about, putting shellfish out for the public. And, we've supported other projects, high profile projects where mitigation was a big part of the decision-making process. So I just think it's fair for our board to be consistent in how it deliberates. So.
Yeah, I think this applicant has done everything we asked them to do. I know the board's had a lot of concerns with people doing things and then asking permission later. But this application, the applicants have played by all the rules. They've done everything we requested them to do. I think I'm inclined to vote positively on this thing. And if we're going to put a moratorium in, we should treat that as a separate issue and discuss whether we want to put a moratorium on any docks. But as Jim said before, what one board does, another board can undo. I think this gentleman's done everything he can to promote shellfishing. I mean, we're letting people power for shellfish 3 years after they're seeded. I think this applicant has jumped through a lot of hoops and done very due diligence, and the sterilization of the property is a big thing. That's a moratorium, I think, should be looked at as a separate issue.
Okay, I'd like to chime in right now and say that, yes, this application has gone through the hoops to make sure that they're doing everything possible. But I'd like to call attention to something that I feel as a steward of the waterways, and we own the bottomlands. It's incumbent upon me as a trustee to protect the waterways, and having an 80-foot dock with piers that are going to be there, many of them, if not all of them, permanently there, and the catwalk permanently there. It's another obstruction in our harbor. And yes, it's great that we have some homeowners who want to support the oysters and the hatchery. But for how long? Someone said 5 years. That still removes, it's already a bulkheaded property. It removes access to the beach for the public. And I'm all for public access, to protect and preserve public access to the waterways and to the beaches. And there is really no beach there except at low tide. I'd like to share my screen with you for a moment on a picture that was done. It's an aerial view. And this is very concerning to me. as a trustee, when you see the property that it has the bulkheading and then the bulkheading next door, and the property that the applicant has purchased to the left and to the north, and not far, by the way, from marinas, which construction of a dock is considerable in its cost. So I'm not sure if the homeowners have a boat or not at present, but a marina is a perfect place to put your boat, and it's not that far away. If you look at the property next door that is now owned by the applicant, you'll notice that it's rather shoaled out. And I have concern whether or not there will actually be 3 feet of depth to provide for another dock. So I'm concerned that perhaps they would never get a dock anyway. And knowing that, it would be very simple to say in perpetuity, we would not permit another dock to go here. So that concerns me, because it doesn't look, if you see my marker, it doesn't look really as though they're going to meet that 3 feet in. So I have that concern. But my responsibility is to the community and to the oath that I took to preserve and protect our waterways, make them public, and not have more obstruction in our harbors. So although the application has been very thorough and it has, you've appeared here often. When I was a child, we had a boat. We didn't have a dock except one that you could pull in, as everyone in our neighborhood did, on the water. And we either swam out to the boat, or we, we're on this little floating dock. So it's to say that it's for safety purposes, it doesn't gel for me to see an obstruction in the water. We have far too many docks, and I think, Bill, to you saying that you feel we should permit this to happen and then go back and decide to put a ban on. We're offering to the public, well, if you let this applicant have the dock, why aren't you going to let me have it? And it will go on and on. So I'm standing with Tim in terms of wanting to preserve and protect our harbor and not permit this to happen. And I'm sorry to the homeowners. That's how we feel about bulkheading, and that's how I feel about
Susan, this. Everybody's like telling us what they're going to do. Nobody's put up a motion to vote yet.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm just giving my opinion. That's my opinion. Everybody's been giving their opinion.
More than opinion, but
Francis, do you think there's been enough discussion here? Would anybody here like to put a motion up to vote on this? I will. If I'll make a motion to approve this application as it stands.
I'll second that.
Okay, Allison, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Okay, John Aldred.
No.
Francis Bach.
Okay. I've been going back and forth on this from the day it came in. And the conclusion I think I've come to is that for the past 35 plus years, there has not been a ban in this area. Any trustee board could have gone ahead and put the ban in place, and then the entire harbor would be sterilized. If we didn't want a dock there, then it was incumbent on us to sterilize that area. We haven't. The applicant has jumped through hoops. He's offered to sterilize his property next door for another dock. I'm going to say yes, but I think if we really want to stop the continuation of docks in this area, then you guys next week better come up with a plan. That's really all I can say. So I'm going to say yes.
Can I, since I'm the only one who hasn't really spoken to this,
sure,
except the word no, can I just give my rationale here?
Yeah, absolutely.
From the beginning, I was very skeptical about this, primarily for the reason that this is an area that's been seeded by the shellfish hatchery and harvested for 10, now I believe 11 years. And I believe if we can't say no to a dock in an area that's a viable shellfish area, we're going to have a very hard time saying no to any dock in 3 Mile Harbor. I also agree with the precedent issue for that reason. There's been talk about, any future board can undo a moratorium or what we decide on something, but what a future board can't do is force anybody to take out a dock. So if this dock goes in, this dock will be here in perpetuity and will be a de facto or be seen by the general public as a privatization of this general area. And I agree with Susan that, our task here is to steward our lands and the harbors for everybody in town. That's my rationale.
Allison?
Would you like me to continue? Okay. Rick, Drew?
I've gone back and forth on this project also, but earlier I did mention that I think it's important for our board to be consistent, and I spoke very strongly against certain aspects of a very high-profile project that it would cause harm to the environment, but our board approved the installation of 15 monopile turbine bases out at Cox's Ledge with a permanent scour area of over 300 acres, which is basically the size of all of 3 Mile Harbor. That pristine ocean reef will be permanently scarred, and all of that productive, highly productive bottom land will be no longer producing marine life. So I find it hard to listen to how we want to protect the marine environment when we voted completely the other way on a very environmentally sensitive project. And I don't see the severity of the impacts here, and we might actually create habitat for oysters with this structure if it's done right. And I think we have an opportunity to partner with the homeowner here in a way that's positive. I don't see the bottom land being off limits in any way. The bulkhead's already there, so you're not gaining access, and you're not really inhibiting access. So I think this is a real opportunity to partner with the homeowner and again, falling back on mitigation like we did previously. So I'm going to have to say yes on this one.
I just want to say one thing too. The difference between Cox's Ledge and here is vastly different, Rick. Everybody voted for that. And habitat does in fact grow and grows on the turbines that are planted.
Susan,
I'm a scuba diver. I've seen it. Listen, Rick, I'm speaking right now, Rick. Let me finish. And I will finish because as a diver, I can attest to species delivering their eggs to piers, and that is why we have reefs, artificial reefs that are sunk in the ocean, because habitat does come. Marine species make it their home. Artificial reefs are very important to our ocean waters, and I see it and I know it firsthand. So the two are very different here. And while you did say that this could create habitat for oysters, the piers themselves, as long as they're in the water, they will attract migratory fish and eggs being laid. But to put the two together is
Speak to the scientists at NOAA who are discussing this now, Susan. Speak to the scientists at NOAA. They'll tell you a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. Hey guys, I think we're way off of subject here. The vote on the table is for this dock.
Arlene, can you?
All right, I'm going to continue. Tim Garneau?
No.
I think Ben Dollinger has arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, Ben, I can come back to you. Ben, what is your vote?
Votes yes.
Okay, Jim Grimes?
Yes.
Susan McGraw-Keeper?
No.
And Bill Taylor?
Yes.
Okay.
Ben, did you vote?
I did. I just voted. Thanks,
Okay,
Susan.
I'm just recording. So you are, I'm sorry?
I voted yes.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I think we have a 5-3 affirmative. 5-4-3 against. I think the motion carries. Congratulations, people.
Thank you.
We thank you for the time and all the thought you put into this. I understand that, feelings run strongly, for some against the dock. I think and I hope that once it's put in, a lot of those concerns will be alleviated. So thank you for your time.
I'd just like to say thank you for being so patient with us and being such straight shooters and, making the attempts you made to get this in your favor. Even though I voted against it, I thought it was a good application and well done.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for making
I
it
would
so
agree.
difficult.
I agree as well, and I thank you, and we'll see the new dock, I guess.
If I
keeping
could,
our eye on it.
Francis, could I say something momentarily?
Sure, absolutely.
First of all, I want to thank the trustees, both those who voted for this and both those who voted against it. I am deeply grateful for the work that this body does. And I have had the honor of seeing you guys in action for the past a couple of years anyway. And I'm really grateful that you guys, all of you, are doing this important work. I think it's a testament to why we have such pristine waters and a wonderful fishery. So I have to just really congratulate each of you. I know it's public service, and I'm just very grateful. Susan, when you put up the picture of our property, I almost wanted to jump in to point out other things that we've done because, and I just want to assure you that you have approved the dock for the right family because we are going to continue. We are totally aligned with you in terms of water quality and maintaining the health and beauty of that harbor. We've put in new septic. We've gone from a permeable driveway, which you saw there, to a gravel one. We will not be applying for a bulkhead for the adjacent property, and we may in fact sterilize that as well. We're contemplating a donation of land along 3 Mile Harbor, and we're going to participate in that program for 10 years at least. I just, for those of you who did not vote for it, I completely respect that. And I would have respected the decision, obviously, anyway. But I'm grateful to each and every one of you. And thank you for the work you do for our community.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Those words.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said previously, if this board wants to see a sterilization of new docks in 3 Mile Harbor, I think you have your work cut out for you and you need to jump on it immediately. Okay. Anyone, you want to form a committee? How do you want to move forward?
I think we should form a committee.
And Francis, I think we have some work to do on this application, just to dot the i's and cross the t's on the sterilization of the neighboring property and working with the applicant on the shellfish aspect of mitigation. So we have work to do here as well.
Mm-hmm. I also think that one aspect that we discussed here, the permanence or removal of the piles is something that needs to be looked at on other docks around the harbor as well. I believe some docks have been permitted under the condition that piles are removed. I believe there's been a request from one of those dock owners to leave his pilings in year round.
Yeah, I think that's an issue we should look into as to whether you disturb things more by moving them around than you do by having another means of keeping the ice from destroying them, or maybe a bond put up to replace, to repair them if they do get busted. Some of the larger pilings, when you take them out every year, it makes it tears the bottom up pretty good.
I
I
agree.
agree with you, Bill. We should take a serious look at the implications of either leaving the pilings in or taking them out. But it sounds to me as though it would be more disruptive. But on the other hand, then you have pilings sitting in the waterways, which is quite unattractive as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
But-
it's not a matter of the unattractiveness. The issue becomes a navigational issue. If those pilings happen to pull during the winter months, sometimes ice will heave them, either break them off or pull them out. That's the reason you're asking for pilings to be removed on floaters during the winter. But I would agree that, the mere process of jetting a piling in, there is a certain degree of disturbance to the bottom, which if you can avoid it, great. But I think this may be one of those things that you can start off with these things as permanent installations. And as Susan, you mentioned, growth, is life that develops on a piling, even over a short season. But I think the board's got to be prepared to, if there's a history or a problem with these things coming free, that you go back to the conditions that on some of these other dock applications that they had to remove the pilings for the floating docks annually. That's why you remove them.
Yeah, Jim, there is some equipment.
It has nothing to do with the aesthetic.
There is some equipment out there that can be deployed, something called an ice eater. That's like a fan in the water that circulates the water.
Exactly. And
that's to deploy those and attach them to the pilings to keep the ice from forming.
Yeah, we want some, even putting up a bond to repair any yanked out pilings. It's an issue we should look at harbor-wide, even town-wide.
I don't really think, Bill, personally, I don't think this is something that meets the threshold of requiring bonding. If we're looking to try and retain some monies or something to cover that, it could be something just as simple as a homeowner getting a line of credit for that.
We have to deal with the possibility of ice damage, but there might be simpler ways of doing it.
Yeah,
I see.
But like Rick mentioned, putting bubblers in or that on the pilings is something that's very affordable, easy to do here. But I think post this decision, we need to spend a little time with Chris. And Chris, I see you're on here, just to get the language of this permit right and make sure that the conditions that have been put forth by the applicant are memorialized in that permit.
Yeah, that sounds good, Jim. I'm available to work on this.
All right, so I would like to see a dock committee put together tonight. I don't think you should hesitate if reviewing on the future of these things. So
well, if
can I have three volunteers?
Right now, Francis, we've got the Harbor Management Committee, which is myself, John, and Rick. I think we can only take one more member.
I would like to see, I think Bill has a lot of background in this, having been the senior harbor master. I think he might be a valuable asset here.
All right.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Well,
okay, John, Rick, Jim,
and Bill makes sense.
What is it you see as the task here, Francis?
is this where we want to start this conversation?
Well, you kind of said we better get this together by next meeting.
Well, I think you need to. Let's talk later.
Francis, if I may, just real quick, I think there's two main points. One is, tidying up the current application we just voted on, and B, our future vision. And I think that's the agenda that you should lay out for our committee to work on and report back.
Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Move on. We have a resolution to create a 1-year trial period to allow year-round powering of soft clams by special permit.
Well, we discussed this at the last meeting. I said I would read the resolution and could vote on it tonight. I will read the resolution. Resolution dated October 15th regarding the taking of soft clams in trustee waters. Whereas Section 213.10B of the Town Code prohibits the taking of shellfish in any manner other than by hand power. Whereas Section 213.16B of the Town Code prohibits the taking of soft clams between May 1st and August 31st of each year. Whereas Section 213.18 of the Town Code recognizes the trustee's authority to alter the methods, equipment, and permissible dates for the taking of shellfish in such areas as the trustee shall designate. And whereas Section 213.8 of the Town Code authorizes the trustees to issue special permits entitling holders to take shellfish from designated areas under certain conditions and as set forth in 213.18. And whereas the Baymen of the Town of East Hampton have requested that the trustees authorize the taking of soft clams by holders of commercial shellfish permits from trustee waters by the method known as churning or powering. Whereas in the past, the trustees have received similar requests and been advised that churning performed properly will result in little impact of a harmful and or serious nature, and that it's possible that sets of bivalves in the target area could be advantaged, as the churning impacts may tend to reduce predator populations. Whereas the trustees have authorized the taking of soft clams by powering or churning on a number of occasions in the past, and those experiences have not been proven to be detrimental to the shellfish population or the environment, it is beneficial to the economic well-being of those who rely upon town shellfish resources for their livelihoods. And whereas to limit any harmful impact on other users and to maintain a sustainable fishery, the trustees shall place a restriction on churning or powering, 1, from May 15th through September 15th, within 100 feet on either side of a road end or other vehicle access point to a harbor. 2, at any time in any area containing eelgrass or widgeon grass, plus areas seeded with oysters for the past 3 years and areas seeded with clams for the past 5 years. And this isn't in there, but it needs to be added. Any area seeded with scallops in the previous year, as delineated in seeding maps published by the East Hampton Town Shellfish Hatchery and distributed to special permit holders. Now, therefore, be it resolved, 1, notwithstanding the permissible dates and methods for the taking of soft clams set forth in sections 213.10B and 213.16B of the Town Code, the trustees hereby designate and approve the following special season and designated areas for the harvesting of soft clam by the method known as churning or powering between sunrise and sunset on all Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays during the period commencing Monday, November 8th, 2021, and ending Friday, October 28th, 2022, inclusive, in all trustee waters certified for shellfishing, except within 100 feet of a road end or other vehicle access trail or kayak rack area between May 15th and September 15th, and at any time in any area containing eelgrass or widgeon grass and oyster gardening location, and any area seeded by the East Hampton Town Shellfish Hatchery with oysters within the past 3 years, with hard clams within the past 5 years, and with bay scallops within the past year, as delineated on seeding maps published by the Town Shellfish Hatchery. and only persons who possess a valid applicable 2021 and 2022 Town of East Hampton commercial shellfish license shall be eligible to participate in the special season described in paragraph 1. The special season shall be subject to such conditions, rules, and regulations as the trustees shall impose thereon. By authorization of and under the conditions set forth in 213(8) of the Town Code, special permits, trustees will issue special permits to otherwise eligible persons to participate in the special season described herein. Pursuant to section 213(8)(b), application for a special permit may be made between Tuesday, October 26, 2021, and Friday, November 5th, 2021, at the trustee office, 267 Bluff Road, Amagansett, New York, 11930. During normal business hours, applicants must produce their valid 2021 Town of East Hampton commercial shellfish license and a New York State driver's license or other New York State identification, and pursuant to section 213(8)(b)(2), applicants must, at the time of application, execute a sworn statement on penalty of perjury that the applicant has not been convicted of a violation of this chapter or a former chapter 125 within 1 year prior to the application therefore. Anyone found guilty of violating Chapter 213 or the former Chapter 125 within 1 year prior to the date of application shall be ineligible for a special permit. Further, the trustees will strongly recommend to the court that it revoke the special permit for any special permit holder subsequently convicted of a violation of Section 213 or the former Chapter 125. Special season shall authorize the taking of soft clams by a technique known as churning or powering with a propeller, and only on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays during daylight hours, only during the time frames and in the areas specified in paragraph 1. No other out-of-season method of taking is authorized. No permit holder shall take more than 2 bushels of soft clams per day from any or all of the areas described in paragraph 1. All clams so taken shall be placed in either wire or plastic bushel baskets. No person shall possess any quantity of soft clams that do not fit flush within said baskets. Any boat containing soft clams in trustee harbors on days when churning or powering is permitted shall be subject to inspection by the trustees or the harbor masters. A record shall be kept by each special permit holder of the quantity of soft clams harvested by location and date. This record, which will be confidential for the purpose of trustee understanding the state of the resource only, shall be supplied to the trustee office quarterly through the permitted period, either by hard or electronic copy, and no later than quarter one, January, no later than January 31st, 2022. Period 2, no later than April 29th, 2022. Period 3, no later than July 29th, 2022. And period 4, no later than October 31st, 2022. All other provisions of Chapter 213 shellfish shall remain in effect within the areas designated in this resolution. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall take effect upon the filing of the same with the East Hampton Town Clerk and posting as set forth in Section 213(18) of the Town Code, and shall expire at sunset on October 28th, 2022.
Oh, thank you, John. A second?
In favor?
Aye. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
That was a
Anyone
great
opposed?
resolution you wrote.
It's like Moby Dick.
It goes way back. Parts of this resolution go way back.
No, it was a big effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to committee reports. Aquaculture, update on oyster and scallop seeding with John Barley Dunn.
I'm not sure why that's on there. Barley saw
Did you
that.
put it on?
Didn't know he was invited.
Yeah.
Not sure. I didn't put it on. No.
No, I assume it just referred to the seeding you guys did the other day.
Oh, well,
That is correct.
Okay. Well, we did. We seeded oysters the other day. With the,
And we also got our skiff lodged in the bottomland. We had fun with the kids, though. I would like to thank Paddle Diva for bringing out all the boards. It was part of the middle school's members of the Surfrider environmental group. So Tim, I actually expected to see Courtney there, but it was fun. We had the teachers come with the children, and I should say young students. And how many oyster seedlings, John, did Barley have with him?
25,000.
Yeah.
About inch to inch and a half in length, each oyster.
Yeah. And then at one point,
scattered the flat at Northwest with oysters. So should be a good harvest there. And
you're not supposed to tell anybody.
well, the maps are published.
I think Barley, at one point I took a picture of him. He was holding oysters that you thought were about 6 years old or 6 to 10 years old.
Yeah, there are a couple of oysters found that must have been, I don't know, 9 inches long. Huge.
It was a fun day, and it was the best weather, and it's an annual event. So I want to thank everybody who participated in it, and it's always a lot of fun. So that was it. It's good to give back to the harbors.
Okay. Education. Update on the East Hampton Village Fair merchandise sale.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Francis, and Jim, and John brought his grandchildren with Gail. We had a fun time. We participated in the Fall Festival sponsored by East Hampton Chamber of Commerce. And of course, we had all our goodies out there to raise money for our scholarship fund. So the fair, we brought in $427 worth of sales, and the largest clam contest, as I reported earlier, this month brought in $1,452, and that's a total for this month to contribute to the fund of $1,879 in donation money. So I'm very pleased, and thank you very much. It was a lovely weekend.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Georgica, update on 19 Chauncey Close dewatering project. Are we
Francis,
going to hear an engineering report tonight?
You know, I spoke with Rich Brierley this week. He has all the information from Dr. Gobler. And I know Jim did a nice presentation last week explaining the project. And I think it's PW Grosser is working with the applicant to put together an engineering plan to give us a more accurate look at how much water will need to be dewatered directly into the pond. I've also spoken with members of the Friends of Georgica Pond, and they are concerned about water going directly into the pond, particularly given the higher levels of nitrogen and phosphorus in the groundwater. And they were recommending possibly some type of treatment, like a permeable barrier or something like that, that could be part of the system. So have not heard back from Rich Brierley this week. I don't know if anyone else heard from him, but we've been working together on this, and I have not gotten a report back from him to date. So That's the latest that I have from him. And, we're also waiting to hear back from Helen Chang at the DEC, the engineer assigned to the project.
Rick, if I could, I spoke to Rich Brierley Friday, I think it was, and the engineers are putting together the package on that.
Right. He mentioned earlier this week. Didn't know if
so that's in their hands. What they did do, though, is they did do some modifications to the dewatering setup the other day. one of the issues over there was when they started looking at what was clogging the filters. What was clogging the filters was algae. Okay, and the algae was forming in that open top settling tank. So what they did the other day is they shut the system down, they drained the tank, they pressure washed the tank, and then covered the tank and took basically shut it out from the light. And it seems to have made a big difference in the filters clogging. In fact, actually today was the first Monday in 3 weeks that the settling pond didn't overflow over the weekend, because that's what was happening. When those filters clog up, the pumps can't carry the water fast enough. So the pumps adding the water to the settling tank outpace the pumps removing that water. And that's where the overflows have occurred. So I think the system is actually working better.
That's great.
I took a look at that site this week, and the basement was dry except for one section of it. And it looked like very little water was being run through the system. I think only one of the pumps was running, and it looked like it was running at a fairly low RPM.
Yeah, those pumps run at fairly low RPMs anyway, but the actual volume that they're pumping right now is less than the...
Does anybody know what that volume is now?
550 gallons a minute. John, you can actually go over and lift up the thing and read the meter. It tells you exactly how much water is going through the pipe at any given time.
And how many, the water's being discharged into the ground?
Into 3 dispersion wells.
Those are the three large pipes that are next to the settling tank? Is that
correct?
True?
Correct. But that water doesn't come directly from the settling tank. That water goes from the settling tank through the filters and then gets pumped back into the ground.
Jim, do you want any pictures from the PowerPoint?
No, I don't think
I don't need them at this juncture.
I don't think we really need them. But in any case, the system does seem to be working. If you want to report on what's going on our end, we finished our work over there. Everything's been planted, everything's been seeded, and we're basically done for the season on that property.
That was a huge, beautiful job, too.
All right, so we're kind of waiting on them at this point, is what it comes down to. Okay. Harbor Management, an update on the Sag Harbor Water Quality Initiative, interagency agreements to be signed in order to initiate disbursement of funds to Dr. Gobler. I know something came in. I don't know if it actually came in, but it was released from Sag Harbor.
Yeah, there was 3 documents that we got the other day. I'm assuming everybody had a look at them.
Have we received the funds from these other agencies?
That I can't tell you. Perhaps Allison?
Because we generally don't disperse until we receive them all.
Yeah. Allison, have we received?
Every year.
So we've received, I believe, from Sag Harbor. I was in communication with the Ann Welker of the Southampton Town Trustees, and she's just waiting on the they've had some movement of people in key positions, and so she was just waiting on the process. I told her that you guys would be discussing it tonight, and she will get the form signed and a check cut to us so that we can have that. But I have not heard anything from Southampton Town itself.
So we're ready to sign our portion of the agreement, correct?
We should be, yeah.
Okay.
Would you like myself or Arlene to reach out to Southampton so that the town, so that we can make sure to get all of it together?
Yes,
well,
please.
If they're looking for disbursement, yes.
Okay, perfect. Will do.
Anything else on that, guys? No? we're all the way up to administrative at this point. Payment of the bills, Montauk Anglers Club and Marina LLC, $99.94 for gas and supplies, and $664.08 for a 100-hour service on the Yamaha engine. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Everybody is making the motion.
All right. Well, I think
So
you
who
got
wants
the
to
motion
take
and you've
number
got
one
the
slot?
second.
Who wants the number one slot so I can record it for our minutes? Who's the first person who said me? Okay, I'm going to pick you. Jim,
Me.
you're who? Ben?
Tim.
Tim. Okay, Tim, you made the motion. And who's seconded it?
Jim.
Second.
John, Jim?
Second.
John did. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, financials for the month ending September 30th, 2021. Anybody have a opportunity to review?
Have not.
I have not.
Please table.
Minutes for August 9th.
I have already spoken with Allison, and it's been a hectic week, so I promise by the next meeting I will have read my share of those. I'll have read them. John?
I'll second that too.
Okay.
So we're in unison in this, right?
Okay. All in favor?
All right. So we'll have it ready for next meeting.
So I should assume September and October in the same place.
Yes. So November 8th.
Okay, so
we'll table them for the moment.
Yep, that's all I have on administrative. I guess the report of the clerk, what I'll do is go back to this committee that was formed tonight. I think there's some immediate actions that need to be considered. Is it possible for you guys to get together before the next meeting? And
I would think we can.
and report back then?
Yes.
Can we meet in person?
Yes.
Probably.
We can go to a football game. We can meet in person.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put down that we will hear back from you on November 8th, I believe.
Yes. November 8th.
Hey, what's the next meeting after that?
I'll tell you in a minute.
22nd.
Oh,
22nd?
November 22nd?
All right. Okay.
Motion to close.
Wait, before
I'll
we
second it.
hold on one second, Francis.
Yeah.
Two quick questions. Members of the public have been asking if we could just please announce, they're having trouble finding the opening day for scalloping season. I'm not sure why, but if we could just announce that for everyone. And then also the date that the pump out boat is going to run until. Those were two questions that people have been asking. So I just thought it might be worthy just to mention it quickly.
Okay, I believe scallop season starts. You remember, John?
November 7th, is it?
I
Sunday
thought
the
it was
No.
Or 8th?
I think you're
No,
right.
you're right. It's the 7th.
Yeah.
November
Sunday
7th.
the 7th.
Sunday the 7th.
November 7th?
Right.
Which is a
Sunday,
Sunday.
November 7th.
Sunday, November 7th. Yes?
The
Yes.
state is the 1st, and then we're a week later on Sunday, which would be the 7th.
7th.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
And Jim, what are you thinking on the pump
Last
out
day
boat?
is Sunday.
Sorry?
Last day is this coming Sunday, which is what is it? Halloween.
31st?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt, is there anybody on the line?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.